So, on a serious note, in 2011, he was basically giving sermons from his house to people in masses, and he was recruiting them for jihad and telling them that this should continue in the world, basically killing of innocent human beings, and that they should all take part in it. And they were all like inflamed up, and they were coming to his house in masses every single day. And the reason I know he was tipped off is because someone does something every single day. Not funny. Okay, he was recruiting people for jihad, killing of innocent human beings in masses every single day. You check the records. And then one day he suddenly stops, which means what? He was tipped off by law enforcement, obviously. Law enforcement were watching and they tipped him off. That's what they do. They don't do their work, they just tip people off. And yeah, so that's what happened. And if you look at the records for the past more than 25 years, my mother's never uttered one bad word considered bad her entire life, not even remotely, not ever, not once. And all my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters have done from the start is just lie, fabricate, lie, fabricate, lie, fabricate, lie, fabricate. That's all they've done. So this child thing, where they are trying to find something that someone said around me that could be considered bad around me as a child, which we know for a fact since a war occurred around me when I was a child, and it would never be my mother and she would never be present, but law enforcement being themselves are going to try to find something like that now. And the reason I know is because I was an 11-year-old child when the war occurred, but as soon as I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, facts and evidences will show I never even went to the community pool anymore, because I realized that my mother needed help and I helped her out. After that, never attended any weddings. And I'm telling the truth on that, since they found an incident at a wedding in 2023. They tried to frame me for it and I wasn't even present there. I can guarantee you that much. And the reason I can guarantee you that much is because I'm telling the truth about the fact that I was not even remotely present in any settings from the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. So now, the thing about it is, how do we come to this child thing? And what is this really about? Are the two main questions. So, first of all, the child thing is because I was a child during the war, and when I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, I was never present in any settings. You know this for a fact, since law enforcement was incredibly desperate to try to frame me in 2023. They found a wedding incident. They tried to use severe mental torture on me every time anyone would speak of any weddings, and I can guarantee you that much that I would not be present at this wedding. And the people who would be people like Sohaib and Asad, and they would have never been questioned about anything ever. And the reason I know I wouldn't be present is because ever since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I was never present anywhere. And even before then, rarely any weddings or family get togethers or anything, since my mother could not afford to take me anywhere. So I have been telling the truth on the fact that I have never been present in any setting since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, and I've been telling the truth about the fact that it was due to my mother not being able to afford to do so while working in fast food restaurants. And you know this for a fact since the only incident that law enforcement tried to frame me for was a wedding and an incident that occurred in it where I was not even present at that wedding. And they tried it all year 2023 by flashing me with severe mental instability. For a wedding, I can guarantee I was not present in. The people that would be present would be people like Sohaib and Asad, and I can guarantee no one would ever be questioned. I can also guarantee law enforcement would cover over the entire crime scene and run sex schemes and money fraud with all the individuals like Sohaib, whom they did run sex schemes with. I know this for a fact. And only to remember this wedding incident right when they found out about my brain savant. So before finding out about my brain savant, I was the poor kid whom no one cared about, really. Just let him go, whatever, like not doing anything. 1 year sex schemes, money fraud. Let's not worry about the kid, sort of thing. They find out about my brain savant. Everything changes after that. They want me murdered, and every single one of these relatives were involved in trying to murder me, trying to frame me, things of that sort of nature. So yeah. So basically, that's what happened. And people, like law enforcement's BFFs, would even joke around at mosques about murdering me. Um, to the point where if Sohaib is getting rejected by some girl, he would call his friends who were also law enforcement's BFFs, and they would all get together and they would joke around about murdering me. And so it would be like, we're going to murder him because such and such girl is not going with me, and I think it's because she likes him or something. And the person Sohaib would be joking around with would be Sohaib's BFF and law enforcement's BFF, and that person would literally like, the mosque is like talking about collecting money, and they would just be like, and then this weirdo BFF of law enforcement would raise his hand and be like, what if you die and like you should put this in your will that you're gonna, and then the mosque would be like, haha, yes, if you have $10,000, just put it in your will because you're probably gonna die, sort of thing. Put us in the will. And the reason like these things were like law enforcement and their BFFs would literally just joke around about murdering me. This, and it would only be because Sohaib would be getting rejected by some girl, law enforcement, and Sohaib would think that it's because of me. When in fact, I would have nothing to do with it. I would have never even talked to that girl. I wouldn't know that girl. And law enforcement being themselves having a big mouth would tell her everything about me, which I never asked them to do. And I never told a girl about. And I never even met the girl or talked to her. But being extremely envious, that's what these people do. And that BFF of Sohaib's and law enforcement would be joking around at the mosque with the mosque officials about murdering me. And the mosque people going like, yeah, if you have $10,000 in your bank account, just put it in the will for us. And because you're probably going to die. Pretty much speaking about me. And I'm just thinking in my head, like, how long have you guys been trying to do this? You think you're finally going to be able to murder me? It's not that easy, man. Anyways, what actually ended up happening was, yeah, this is the kind of behavior they have towards me, law enforcement and their BFFs. And all they've done is run sex schemes with people like Sohaib. And I know for a fact Sohaib joked around with this person, and this person then went to the mosque and said it there, which is why I don't like any of these people. They're pretty much all my enemies. They all hate me. They're all envious of me. They all joke around about murdering me behind my back, and I know this for a fact. I couldn't care less. I don't even go to the mosque anymore. Mother's not that religious. She doesn't care. And so yeah, but the thing about it is, what I had to make the video about is the fact that yeah, if you know for a fact that since 2001 this is all law enforcement's been doing, then you should know from common sense that the only reason that this has nothing to do with anything, okay? It has nothing to do with anything. And this investigation has nothing to do with anything. What does is my brain savant. And the people arguing against me right now, like my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters, they're basically taking law enforcement's talking points that law enforcement cannot talk themselves in this trial due to the fact that all they've done since 2001 is run sex schemes and money fraud. So my dad, the greedy framer, like they got caught on November 20th trying to create mass panic and chaos to the point that Governor Josh Green had to put aside the vaccine issue. And around November 27th, he was saying on CNN, we have to remove this confusion. Confusion is the enemy. And the CNN anchor was just like, oh, yes. And guess what? That crime and setting my dad begged his framer sisters to make against me, the crime and setting did not even exist. It was handed to them by the government. But even after they were caught on the testimony stand, lying, my dad's greedy framer sisters being themselves continued going to court and going, you guys are making a big mistake. We saw him commit this crime that we testified for on November 20th. You're letting him go? Are you insane? I'm telling the truth over here. And the courts and the government would just look at them like, yeah, thanks for letting us know. Have a great day. We got to go back to work. And the reason that was because of the fact that the person giving them the fabrication material and helping them fabricate was actually working for the government. So in early March 2026, my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters, being who they are, were making more lies about me. But in the middle of making these lies about me, They're obviously also going to court and saying we really did witness him commit the crime that we testified for on November 20th, and you guys didn't take our testimony, and the courts were just like, didn't answer it because they didn't. Of course, government didn't want them to know that who our government informant was, because if the courts told them, then like law enforcement that's corrupt would go after this person and be like, how dare you try to frame us for trying to frame Hassan, sort of thing. So the courts and the government didn't tell them, my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters, but every time they would go to court and be like, we really did witness him commit the crime for November 20th, the courts and government would just look at them like, thank you for letting us know. We'll take that into consideration, sort of thing. And the reason was they didn't want to tell them who the government informant was, but it was the person fabricating the false testimony with them. So in early March 2026, my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters are making more lies about me. And in the middle of these lies, they've finally realized from going to court every single day to try to frame me for November 20th false testimony again, that person who was the government informant had to be the person who was fabricating with them. Which meant that they had already confessed to this lie being a lie, these set of lies that they were probably making around early March being a lie, due to which they, in early March 2026, they switched over and they started asking me to marry their daughter. So March 9th, Fer, the greedy framer, and her framer's sister, the spokesperson's mother, were asking me to marry their daughter on March 9th. And then on March 7th, Fer, the greedy framer, sent me a porn star's picture named Sunny Leone with her name Fer written on the bottom 3 times on the morning of March 7th. And on March 10th and afterwards, Afreen, the weirdo, ugly old fart, was sending me pictures of a woman resembling her, sexually explicit pictures of a woman resembling her almost every single day, March 10th and afterwards. I was just like, ladies, if I wanted to go with someone with this brain savant, I think I could do better than committing incest with my dad's sisters, you disgusting perverts. So what happened was, after this, the man, my dad, the greedy framer, who was supposed to be the emir of Ireland for like these Tablighi Jamaat people, really high-ranking official whom people would go to get their prayers done, sent me a request through law enforcement, so you can ask law enforcement yourselves. On March 12th, he sent me a request through law enforcement asking if I was willing to sleep with his ugly, old, disgusting-looking, weirdo wife with his big beaver teeth, so I could fulfill his sexual perversions while at the same time giving him illegal assurances of money for this ugly old weirdo. And yeah, I don't think these people's prayers were answered. That's all I gotta say. Anyways, but those sermons from 2011, those were extremely serious, and those sermons probably did cause a lot of effect. How many people joined terror groups? We don't know. How many people have been killed? We don't know. How long he'd been given these sermons on jihad? We do not know. All we know is that it was all witnessed by me and law enforcement tipped them off, told them to not say these things anymore around me. That's what law enforcement does. They don't investigate anything. They just go tell the bad guy, like, don't do this, man. We're running our sex and money fraud right now. We don't want to have to worry about you, so why don't you just shut up till he's still here, and then you could go back giving your sermons on killing. Basically, he was giving sermons on jihad and mass murder of people every single day from his house. Literally just stopped one day, letting me know that something definitely happened, and now I know what had happened. He was tipped off by law enforcement. So basically, yeah. So basically, what happened was early March 2026, my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters were making all these, lies about me. And the lies, those lies were all already They already told government informant about wanting to make these set of lies about me as well, which is why they were trying to uh, get me married to their daughters. Sorry, not sisters, daughters. My dad's sisters were also doing these perverted things, sending me a porn star's picture and that and this and that, like ugly old weirdo woman, like old farts, ugly, fat, weirdo, perverted, only asking me through law enforcement because too ashamed to do it themselves. Obviously no one would do that, so they're asking me through law enforcement. But that's a good thing for me, since now law enforcement is witness, and anyone in government that asks law enforcement, is this true, and law enforcement would just have to be like, yes sir it is, we're the messengers in this case, we asked him if he was willing to do this and we sent the pictures. And yeah, so it's good for me that they use law enforcement, but it was a shame associated with this kind of behavior, due to which they had to use law enforcement, not ask me themselves. Um, so they were caught with their second set of lies. My dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters in early March 2026. And then afterwards, he obviously tried again. So envy didn't work with the framings. Greed didn't work with the incest. I was not interested, believe it or not. And then these disgusting weirdos that go back to envy and start making more lies, more aggressively against me, claiming that I don't know what, because I wasn't in court, but I know that phone conversations had to be retrieved. And I could tell the courts and the judge, as soon as it was retrieved, that, Your Honor, every single thing that this man, the greedy framer, my dad, and his framer sisters, had pushed very aggressively in court, complete and total lie. From the evidence retrieved from the phone conversations retrieved. And guess what? That is what happened. Every single statement they made was a lie. And so basically, yeah, third time they were caught. So what is this really about? What is associated with the greed and envy? Why do they want to lock it up? What's really going on? Fact of the matter is, since day one, 2001, law enforcement has been running sex games with Uncle Joey's in-laws. They couldn't care less about any investigations. All these adults, including people like Sohaib and Assad, were always involved. They were always present. They couldn't care about any crimes and crime scenes at any weddings that they were trying to frame me for in 2023. And I can guarantee I would not be present at these weddings, thereby proving my point that as soon as I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, I was never even present anywhere in any setting, and law enforcement had desperately tried to frame me for something that they themselves covered over at a wedding, that they never asked a single question to any of the adults, including Sohaib and Assad, who would definitely be present, and I would never be present anywhere due to the fact that my mother worked at fast food restaurants and all I did was work hard. So that brings us to the question, so if there's no investigation that's been done, all law enforcement has been done since day one, is run sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws and money fraud that's been going on for years and years, and the money still being collected till this very day today, with the money not starting from the person's bank account, but illegally collected from either unemployment or disability fraud. Since no one gives their own money, the person collecting it would keep some for himself and give some to law enforcement, and law enforcement would give him bank accounts, phone numbers, and everything that where the money would be transferred to, and it's still being ongoing right now. So if there's no investigation that's done, then what is this story really all about? Is what people probably want to know. And what this story is really all about, now that I've gotten a haircut, I will show you even more. This ear right over here, it's fully locked. And if you look on the night of April 22nd, these ears right over here, they're all the way on the back of my head. These ears, I can barely move, all the way on the back of my head. And April 22nd, they pissed off someone in government, probably a high-ranking senator or someone of that sort, type or nature, and that guy or lady got pissed off and were just like, look, we want to know, does it exist or not? And we got to do a test. And when they did this test on April 22nd, well, guess what? They were not lowering ear drugging. They're taking away the energy weapon torture tools around my ears, due to which it becomes visible that something was definitely being used around my head. And my brain on the inside with the brain scanner would show you, is instead of being like this, like how it is right now, it was like this. And inside of my brain, the powers were increased, and it was just going like zing, 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 zing. With photographic memory, innovation, and focusing basically means that I could use it for hours. So, unlike other brain savants like Daniel Tammet, who has to put his hand like this or do something of that sort of nature, I could go on for hours. Like the artificial intelligence report from August 9, 2022, will easily show and prove to you without a reasonable doubt, which means that not only do I have photographic memory and innovation, I also have focusing, which means that unlike other brain savants, I do not have to take even a 10-second long break. 6 hour long data from August 9, 2022 will prove to you. And the fact that law enforcement does not like looking at reality can be proven through the fact that they were forced to lower the air drugging on that flight out of fear that it would cause a mid-flight turbulence on another passenger if they did not do so. But my ears were still locked up, but I was still able to use my brain savant, and law enforcement did not want to look at the facts. The entire time, I was trying to study during that 6 hour long flight. Law enforcement was hitting my foot, like right over here, and they kept hitting it over and over again to try to tell me that if I did not stop studying, they will break it. But I still didn't stop studying due to the fact that it was the first time in my life that I studied like that. Literally felt like a third arm came out of my body. So basically, I did that for 6 hours. That proved photographic memory and focusing, and innovation was proven a few weeks before April 22nd, right on my bed where I was laying down, and they let go of the air drugging, which let me to use innovation part of my brain savant, proving that my brain savant is triple savant. It's photographic memory, focusing, and innovation. And November 14 brain savant test will also prove that it increases over time. So what is this really all about? It's about either getting an illegal assurance of money for law enforcement and their friends, like how law enforcement was doing. Right now, law enforcement is just sending me bogus money transfer things just to harass me. But after June 28, 2025, when I won my case, law enforcement asked me to make an illegal assurance of money with them all day long, morning till night, every single day after June 28, 2025, before my brain savant would get freed. Obviously, me knowing that they're only doing this because I won my case that night on June 28, 2025, I said no repeatedly, never made any deals with anyone, didn't even hint at the fact that I was willing to do so. I'm not going to do that. My money is mine, and I do not share it. And the reason that my dad, the greedy framer, has been asking me to commit incest with his sisters and fulfill his dirty, disgusting sexual perversions, as you would ask law enforcement, they would tell you occurred on March 12th, 2026, is first of all because he does not answer prayers for anyone, regardless of how big his beard might be. And the other thing is that he wanted to greedily get all the money for himself and make sure that my mother could not get it by using his own sisters to sleep with me. And you know this for a fact, since on March 7th, 3 times I was sent porn star named Sunny Leon with his sister for his name on it. After March 10, every single day, sexually explicit pictures of his old fart, ugly looking wife. Old fart, ugly looking sister, offering the greedy framer. Every single day after March 10th was sent to me. Not just one person, 2, 3, actually, his wife as well. Ugly old weirdo with this big beaver teeth on March 12th. Yeah, right. Like, okay. And anyways, these people were basically doing this because they were caught with the government multiple times. And even after this time in early March 2026, they were caught again because they went back to envy and enviously making false statements against me again, due to which the courts and government had to retrieve phone conversations, only to find out that every single statement that these people made was a complete and total lie again. So basically, the courts and government might want to know, like, if this is what law enforcement has just done since day one, run sex scenes with Uncle Joey's in-laws, money fraud later on. They're still being run till this very day today. And the money fraud, by the way, no one gives their own money. So it has to be disability or unemployment money that's transferred through law enforcement, who gives this person bank account numbers and phone numbers for their friends, and that money gets wire transferred. And I can tell you the person whom the money gets wire transferred to is a friend of law enforcement who lives in Pakistan, whom law enforcement would also try to provide sex schemes for. But the thing is that people might be wondering, well, if this is all law enforcement has done since day one is sex schemes and money fraud, then like, what is this really all about? What this is really all about is my brain savant, which is locked up right now, which has absolutely nothing to do with anything. Okay, I've been a slave since I was like an 11-year-old child, tortured every single day with mental torture drugs, and these people never cared a thing about anything at all, ever, not once. All I've done since I've gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child is work hard with my mother. Facts and evidences will show that, to the point that I was not even present at the setting where at the wedding where the incident occurred that they tried to frame me for all year 2023 by flashing me with the severe mental instability drugs, thereby proving my point that this wedding incident that they were trying to frame me for in the entire year of 2023, I was not even present for. Excuse me. So basically, finally, let me talk today without making me stutter. So basically, what happened was, um, what happened was, so that basically proves beyond a reasonable doubt that I'm telling the truth about the fact that I was not even remotely present in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could ever be said around me since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. And the reason was my mother never took me anywhere because she couldn't afford to do so, which meant that law enforcement, when trying to frame me, had to try to frame me for an incident that occurred at a wedding in 2023. A wedding that I was not even present in, thereby proving without a reasonable doubt that I was not present at any setting where anything even remotely considered bad could be said around me ever, as a child. Since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, and part of the reason was my mother could not afford to take me anywhere. The other reason was that there was no reason for me to go, and I didn't have to like meet with or know anyone. But what we do know is the fact that law enforcement, we know for a fact that they're not letting me talk right now using drugging because I'm telling the truth. What we know for a fact is that I'm telling the truth about the fact that I could not ever be present in any settings ever again. And it was pretty much due to my mother not being able to afford to do so, due to the fact that the one setting that law enforcement tried to frame me for, I was not even remotely present in. And so it was a wedding, that's all I know. And they tried to frame me for it in the year 2023 by intensely flashing me with mental instability. But the fact of the matter is, I was not even remotely present for that wedding. So the question is raised, what is this really all about? It's about the fact that as soon as law enforcement finds out about my brain savant, them and all their friends in the family, including the relatives from Michigan, like Sohaib and Asad, wish to lock up my brain savant using false testimonies, lies, and things of that sort nature, to make sure that my brain savant cannot be used. Now, the thing about it is, I've been pretty much a slave since I was an 11-year-old child. They've been using mental torture on me since I was an 11-year-old child. I was autistic, and there were different parts of autistic people have like an obsession. So since childhood, all I would do is watch documentaries all day long from morning till night, and then at nighttime I would pretty much just go to sleep and wake up the next day, watch documentaries again. The law enforcement basically tested this out on January 20th, 2025, by letting go of the autistic part of my brain and seeing how it performs. And it was that part of my brain from early childhood. And I watched documentaries exactly like how I did in childhood. And the facts and evidences from that brain scan will prove that I'm telling the truth about that. That was early autism, when it had not evolved yet. And how it evolved was the day after I came back from the hotel I took my mother to for Christmas. Law enforcement let go of the other part of my brain, for the autism part. And what happened was, I was watching, things that I'm obsessed with due to being autistic, like Chinese Century of Humiliation, which my brain just likes watching over and over again. It evolved into me staring into textbooks, and I could literally drink a textbook up like medicinal chemistry, like it's a bowl of soup that normal human beings cannot get past the page of. Um, so yeah, um, we tested this one out. So basically for 4 years, every single day for 12 hours from October 2019 till July 1st, 2023, when law enforcement found out that my powers increased over time, due to which they did not let me study anymore. Also, the August 9, 2022 brain savant test for 6 hours will also prove this fact as well.